On the middle of San Francisco Bay sits a small, rocky island. Around it, freezing water churns with currents moving 7 to 9 knots. This island is Alcatraz, the Rock. Starting in 1934, America's most dangerous criminals were sent here because everyone believed one simple thing: escape was impossible. Mob bosses like Al Capone, vicious killers like Machine Gun Kelly, none of them ever dared to try. But on December 16, 1937, 2 ordinary bank robbers challenged that impossible: Theodore Cole and Ralph Roe. Nearly 90 years ago, they vanished from Alcatraz, and they were never seen again. No bodies were ever found. No solid proof of their fate ever surfaced. Only one question remains, echoing through history. Did they drown in the bay, or did they become the first men to ever truly escape from Alcatraz? Welcome to Bloodline History. In this video, we're going deep into this mystery. Who these 2 men really were, how they planned their escape, what actually happened on that fog. And the U.S. Department of Justice turned Alcatraz into a federal penitentiary in 1934. The goal was simple: gather the country's most dangerous, most escape-prone inmates in one place. The island wasn't secured by high walls or barbed wire alone. The real prison was the bay itself. Water temperatures hovered around 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The currents were so powerful that even trained swimmers, tested with support boats nearby, failed to cross the channel. The distance to shore was just 1.25 miles, which sounds short, but between the freezing water and the brutal tides, it was effectively a death trap. Before 1937, there had only been one escape attempt from Alcatraz, and it failed quickly. So when Cole and Roe vanished, all of America was stunned. Their story begins in Oklahoma, during the Great Depression, when bank robbery was almost an epidemic. Theodore Cole, known as Killer Cole, was born in 1913. At just 16 or 17 years old, he killed a man during the robbery of a bottling plant, and a court sentenced him to death. But his mother's emotional appeal sparked public outrage, and his sentence was reduced to 15, then later extended to 50 years in prison. From the moment he entered custody, Cole proved himself a genuine escape artist. Once, he hid inside a garbage can, trying to break out of jail. Another time, he could slip his handcuffs and leg irons so easily that guards were baffled every single morning. In 1935, when a judge ordered him sent to Alcatraz, Cole reportedly told his fellow inmates, "Don't think I'll like it here. Doubt I'll stay long." Ralph Roe was an even more seasoned criminal, serving a 99-year sentence for bank robbery. His past was even more dramatic. In 1933, he was caught in a violent shootout with police and FBI agents in Shawnee, Oklahoma, where his partner, Wilbur Underhill Jr., was killed, and Roe himself was severely wounded but survived. Before that, he had already escaped once from McAllister Prison in Oklahoma, smuggled out hidden inside a wooden crate on a truck, a stunt that became something of a local legend. Both men were classified as extreme escape risks and were first sent to Leavenworth Prison, then transferred to Alcatraz around 1935 and 1936. Interestingly, the 2 already had ties from the Oklahoma criminal underworld, and at Alcatraz they were given the chance to work side by side, a detail that turned out to be crucial to their plan. Cole and Roe were assigned to work inside the Model Industries building at the northernmost tip of the island, where old car tires were cut up and turned into rubber mats for the Navy. This building was actually the weakest point in all of Alcatraz, because its windows opened directly toward the shoreline. For months, using a small smuggled hacksaw blade, they slowly filed through the iron bars of a window. Guards made rounds every 30 minutes, so they had to work in short, careful bursts. To hide the damage, they mixed grease with shoe polish and smeared it over the cuts, making the bars look untouched. Investigators later found that 2 iron bars and 3 heavy glass panes had been cut away, creating an opening about 8¾ inches high and 18 inches wide, just enough for a man to squeeze through. Here's a detail most people don't know. FBI investigators later suspected that another inmate, Francis Harper, may have helped Cole gain access to a different workshop, suggesting this wasn't just a 2-man operation, but possibly a larger, coordinated effort. Reports also say the pair built makeshift flotation devices out of lightweight 5-gallon fuel cans, fitted with custom handles, essentially homemade life preservers for the swim ahead. That day, an unusually dense fog rolled over San Francisco Bay, so thick it disrupted boat traffic across the water. Visibility around the island dropped to almost nothing. At 1 p.m., a routine head count showed every prisoner accounted for, but at the very next check, just 30 minutes later, at 1:30, guards discovered Cole and Roe were gone. In that half hour, they finished their work, slipped through the window, and climbed over a tall wire fence gate, which they'd already broken open using a stolen wrench. Then they made their way down the rocky slope to the shoreline. Because of the fog, guards in the watchtowers saw nothing, not even a Coast Guard boat that came within a few yards of the island responding to a radio call. One inmate, Theodore, who would later become the only prisoner to serve 3 separate terms at Alcatraz, reportedly claimed he personally watched Cole and Roe enter the water and begin swimming. Inside the prison, once word spread that 2 men had escaped, the other inmates celebrated through the entire day and night, a kind of silent victory, as if every prisoner had won a little freedom of their own. At 6 p.m., after completing a full search of the island, Warden James A. Johnston made his announcement, "I believe they're off the island." What followed was one of the largest manhunts in American history. Federal, state, and city police mobilized together. Multiple Coast Guard vessels and speedboats swept the entire bay. Tear gas was fired into different parts of the island, in case the men were still hiding somewhere on the grounds. But nothing turned up, except one abandoned wrench near the shoreline. Newspapers across the country ran the story as front-page news, with headlines like, "Patrols Hunt for Convicts." Warden Johnston himself stated that without a boat, their odds of survival were 1 in 1,000, since the powerful tidal current would have swept them straight out through the Golden Gate and into the Pacific Ocean. Within days, the FBI took over the entire investigation. Both men were placed at number 1 and number 2 on the FBI's most wanted list. An unusual move, since officially they were presumed dead, yet still listed as potentially alive. This is where the story takes its most fascinating turn, because it wasn't just that nothing was found. Over the following years, one strange lead after another kept surfacing. The first lead came just 9 days after the escape. On December 25, 1937, the San Francisco Chronicle reported that a 26-year-old man named Glenn Alton was detained for questioning. 2 teenage boys claimed they saw Alton pour gasoline over a launch boat and set it on fire. Alton said his 18-foot boat had been swept out to sea for 5 days, which is why he destroyed it. The FBI suspected this very boat might have helped Cole and Roe escape, though nothing was ever confirmed. The second lead came in June 1939, when the Seminole Producer newspaper in Oklahoma reported that local residents claimed to recognize Roe and Cole around Seminole, Tecumseh, and Shawnee, with Roe's name even connected to a hijacking incident. Curiously, local police seemed almost reluctant to pursue the investigation further. The third lead is the most dramatic of all. A former Alcatraz inmate named Carl Janaway, nicknamed the Will-o'-the-Wisp, for escaping prison 3 separate times, claimed in his memoir that a woman named Dossie Lynch, known as the Blonde Bandit of the Ozarks, had helped Cole and Roe escape. According to Janaway, Dossie and Cole parted ways with Roe somewhere near Texas and headed toward South America. The fourth lead surfaced in 1941, when a San Francisco Chronicle report claimed Cole and Roe were living comfortably in Peru and Chile, possibly under false identities, aided by a pre-arranged smuggling network. Each of these leads was investigated separately, and none was ever definitively proven. But none were ever fully ruled out either. The FBI's investigation continued into the 1940s, stretching from Oklahoma all the way to South America. Now let's look at the hard facts. Experts estimate the tidal current that day was moving at 7 to 9 knots, powerful enough that even an Olympic-level swimmer couldn't have survived it unaided. The water was cold enough to cause hypothermia and unconsciousness within 20 to 30 minutes. That's exactly why officials concluded they must have drowned. But here's an interesting comparison. In 1962, nearly 25 years after Cole and Roe disappeared, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers pulled off Alcatraz's most famous escape, later immortalized in the film Escape from Alcatraz. Officials reached the same conclusion back then, too. Presumed drowned, no proof. Yet in 2015, a new FBI investigation raised the possibility that the Anglin brothers may have actually survived for decades afterward. And remarkably, on that very same date, 25 years later, another inmate named John Paul Scott actually did swim all the way to the San Francisco shore, though he was later found unconscious from hypothermia and recaptured. That single fact proves it wasn't entirely impossible, at least reaching the shore. So the question remains, if one prisoner managed to reach shore 25 years later, why couldn't 2 well-prepared, experienced escape artists, carrying handmade flotation devices, have done the same back in 1937? Even today, tour guides on Alcatraz Island still tell this story to visitors. The story of Theodore Cole and Ralph Roe. Their names may not be as famous as Frank Morris or the Anglin brothers, but historically, they were the first to prove that escape proof was only ever a belief, never an absolute truth. Almost 90 years later, no body has ever been found, no skeleton, no definitive proof that they truly drowned, only an abandoned wrench, a cut window, and a handful of unconfirmed sightings. So what really happened that foggy afternoon of December 16th, 1937? Did they vanish forever into the cold currents of San Francisco Bay? Or did they truly become the first men in history to make the impossible possible, living out the rest of their lives somewhere far away, under false names, lost forever from the world they left behind? We may never know the true answer, and perhaps within that uncertainty lies the real mystery and the real fascination of this story. What do you think? Did they drown, or did they really make it out? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and turn on notifications, because more mysterious stories from history are coming soon.